Message from the Senate, Madam Speaker. I hereby announce the passage by the Senate of the following House file, herewith returned as amended by the Senate, in which amendments to concurrence of the House is respectfully requested. House File Number 782, an act relating to retirement. The message is signed Thomas S. Boddern, Secretary of the Senate. Becker Finn moves that the House concur in the Senate amendments to House File Number 782 and that the bill be repassed as amended by the Senate.
I recognize the author, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker Finn, to explain the Senate amendments.
Yes, thank you. That is my motion, Mr. Speaker. Relatively minor amendments, a couple of typos that were fixed, and then updating the language on employee leasing companies, and then clarifying that the board would recommend penalties to the Legislative Commission on Pensions and Retirement instead of requiring the penalties. We should repass this very good bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Is there any discussion on the Senate amendments to House File 782? I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And one of the amendments that I did offer was taken to this bill that does help make it a better bill, but as it comes back from Senate, it is not a bill that is needed here in the state of Minnesota, given the Secure Act 1.0 and Secure Act 2.0 at the federal level, making it much easier for employers and others to get involved in a retirement planning program. This just creates additional bureaucracy in the state of Minnesota and puts an extra burden on our small businesses, along with other bills that we will be hearing here this year as time goes on. So I recommend a no vote, ladies and gentlemen. Mr. Speaker, thank you.
Is there any further discussion to the Senate amendments? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to concur with the Senate amendments, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, please say no. No. The motion prevails. The clerk will give the bill its third reading as amended by the Senate.
Third reading, House File Number 782, as amended by the Senate.
Third reading as amended by the Senate. Is there any further discussion of House File 782 as amended by the Senate? I recognize the member from Anoka, Representative Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, once again, we're competing with the private sector here in the state of Minnesota with this bill. It's not necessary. And members, this isn't the right thing to do. There's plenty of information out there about how to set up your own retirement accounts. And this is just something that government should not be doing. Please vote no.
Further discussion. I recognize the member from Chisago, Representative New Brindley.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This was a silly bill when it left this chamber, and it's a silly bill coming back. Here's the deal. You know, we've talked a lot about the $10 billion that are being raised in taxes by the Democrats this year. $10 billion in tax increases on top of a $17.5 billion budget surplus. But what we haven't talked about is the fact that all of these mandates and burdens on employers are just another tax. These are costs on small businesses. That's what this is. So just add this on top of the $10 billion that you've already raised in taxes and add it on again for our small businesses. It's an easy no vote.
Further discussion of House File 782 is amended by the Senate. I recognize the member from Dakota, Representative Garofalo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. And related to Representative New's comments, I would encourage members of the body to open up the Star Tribune and review an article from the Federal Reserve that did a study on the minimum wage increases that the other side of the aisle imposed on this state. It may come as a shock to some who think that this legislature can be exempt from the laws of economics, but we sat on this floor when we debated the increase in the minimum wage and said that you were going to be costing people money and costing jobs. And the Federal Reserve has come out with an exhaustive report showing that, in fact, we were right. That yes, wages went up, but what happened was people worked less. They were given less hours. Their take-home pay went down. And so we have here today another example of the government sticking its nose where it doesn't belong, mandating things that are really not even in the best interest of the employee. If by any chance there's someone out there who's not covered under an existing retirement plan with your employer, let me give you a much better way to do it where you can save money. All you have to do is do a self-directed IRA. Do a self-directed IRA
Put it on your tax form before you submit it in. When you get your refund back, you will then be able to use your refund to deposit the money into the self-directed IRA. Okay? You actually end up paying lower taxes. You end up having a bigger contribution and a lower expense rate. That is something that is involved in financial education for citizens. That would be helpful. A government-run mandated 401k program, silly, dumb, and unnecessary. I'm voting no.
Further discussion to House File 782 is submitted by the Senate. I recognize the member from Clay, Representative Joy.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This one just surprises me again. With my private businesses, I'm surprised that I'm sitting here and I hired Minnesota to manage my business. Everything we are doing down here for small businesses is constant forced on us. There's no guideline saying that 2% of their wage is going to be this or what it's going to look like. There's a board that's going to establish this. But is this good for businesses? I mean, as I read through this and I look at everything coming down to small business, whether you have 1 employee, 2 employees, 3 employees, it's constant force from the state government down here. We get a choice when we buy a business. We get a choice when we build a business. You know, I have kids that work in my convenience store that are 16 years old, just starting the workforce. Now I got to sit them down and say, hey, you want to invest in the retirement? I got to take time and do all that. Then their parents come in because they don't know what a retirement is yet. They haven't learned it in school. It's just not taught. And now they got to sit there and they got to go, oh, well, what's this all about? And we got to manage this. They can opt in, they can opt out. So if we get an employee that's disgruntled and they sign an opt out and all of a sudden they go and say, well, I was forced to opt out. Now they're going to come after us business. Every time we turn around, I mean, it's like, I don't know if Minnesota just wants to own the businesses, our small businesses, or what's going on. Everything is being forced, and this is ridiculous. And you know what? Democrats are destroying the state. I cannot believe sitting here saying, I thought we'd get some bipartisan work done. Nope, everything's fast-tracked. Here we go. Let's get done early and go outside and applaud and watch businesses get destroyed. You know, I mean, this isn't going to attract people from North Dakota because we offer a retirement at every small business. That's not going to do that. We've taxed people to move across that river. You know, vote no.
Further discussion to House File 782 is submitted by the Senate. I recognize the member from Stearns, Representative O'Driscoll.
Well, thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. Let's go back to when we had the original debate on the floor on this. And there was some confusion about how the plan was going to work, that we were talking about, well, maybe money would be collected and sent to the State Board of Investment. The State Board of Investment would go ahead and invest this on behalf of the employees who these contributions were being withheld from. I set the record straight that said, really what's going to happen is the state of Minnesota is going to develop a board and a bureaucracy that will go out and do RFPs that will bring back a private sector administrator for this, who will use private sector mutual funds that are privately managed, very much the same way that Representative Garofalo said one could do a self-directed IRA. All we are doing is putting another barrier between the individual and the provider of these services by mandating this in the state of Minnesota. But then the next day, we also learned that Minnesota needs to create a brand new agency of 400 people to do something else. That will certainly be a conversation for another day. So on some days, we'll hire the private sector to do things, as Representative Scott has said, and quoting former Governor Tim Pawlenty, if it's in the phone book, we don't need to be doing it as government. This is definitely in the phone book for folks to be able to do this. Please vote no for this unnecessary regulation. Increase in support. Literacy, financial literacy in school, where it will actually, the rubber meets the road, and give these younger folks a chance to be able to learn about budgeting, saving for their retirement, individual financial accountability and responsibility. Again, members, vote red.
Further discussion to House File 782 is submitted by the Senate. I recognize the author of the bill, the member from Ramsey, Representative Becker-Finn.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Or just remind members what bill we're talking about. This is the Secure Choice Retirement Plan, and the American Retirement Association said it best that this bill strikes the proper balance to close the retirement plan coverage gap in the private sector workforce to the greatest extent possible while imposing the minimum possible burden on Minnesota employers. This is a very good bill that is supported by ARP, the ARP, the Minneapolis Chamber, Minnesota Council on Nonprofits, and many small business owners like myself. Please vote green.
The clerk will take the roll on the consideration of House File 782 as amended by the Senate. The clerk will close the roll. There being 71 ayes and 57 nays, the bill is repassed as amended by the Senate and its title agreed to.